Now look, I know what you're all thinking. How can I use the money I've saved to buy a house to buy a fancy motorcycle instead? Well, fortunately, we're here to help. Because here are the most expensive bikes on sale for 2024 from 16 of the biggest manufacturers. And naturally, we'll go in price order, ascending. Honestly, Royal Enfield don't really make anything particularly expensive. The highest price I could find in their current lineup is their Super Meteor 650 Cruiser at £7,299. But keep in mind that that's only if you specifically choose the most premium paint jobs, because it actually starts £500 cheaper at £6,799. For one of the best-selling brands with a fairly large lineup now, it's impressive that they've stuck to their core principle of offering cool-looking bikes at a great price, and for that, we admire them. Next up, we've got Husqvarna with their Norton 901 Expedition adventure bike at almost exactly twice the cost. For £14,599, you get this super tall and off-road capable bike, finished with a special paint job to differentiate it from the standard Norton 901. I've been lucky enough to test this one, and while it is a little bit too tall for me and not quite as good as the standard bike in terms of road handling, it still didn't stop me from really wanting one. Another £800 though would get you MOTOBOB's most premium bike in their 2024 lineup, and that's the Stelvio adventure bike kitted out with their rider assistance package at £15,400. The Stelvio is new for 2024 with the same liquid-cooled V-twin as the V100 Mandello Sports Tourer that was launched the year before, and while MOTOBOB are generally best known for their retros and cool-looking bikes, this rider assistance equipped edition is actually super impressive from a technology perspective, with radars both front and rear to enable front collision warnings, active cruise control, blind spot warnings, and lane change assist. Next up, we've got Suzuki with their iconic Hayabusa rocket ship, which is actually 25 years old now. That's why they've decided to mark the occasion with this 25th anniversary special edition, which will cost you just shy of £19,000. That's £400 on top of the standard bike, and for your money, you get this pop-in orange paint job, a solo seat cowl, and special 25th anniversary badging dotted all around the bike. For me, I absolutely love it in this color, but let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. Now, we're not even a third of the way through this list in terms of price, so before we cross that £20,000 threshold, I just want to give a huge shout out to today's video sponsor, and that's Quadlock. If you're looking at expensive bikes like these, then chances are you've probably got an expensive phone too, and there's no better way to keep it secure on the bars of your bike than with a Quadlock mount. Not only do they make a huge range of different mounts to suit different styles of bike, but they also offer Harley cases for most new phones. Then you've got their vibration dampener to reduce harmful vibes from the bike's engine, and I also love using their wireless charging head, which can keep your phone juiced up without having to plug it in. On top of that, they've got loads of other non-motorcycling mounts, such as for cycling, running, golf, or your car. And if you're operating at the top end of this list, then they've even got one for your yacht or helicopter. Genuinely, we love Quadlock products and fit them to every press bike we test, so do check out the link down in the description to find out more. And also, you'll find a discount code down there too, specifically for my viewers, that will get you 10% off anything you buy. So once again, a massive thanks to Quadlock for their support, and with that, back to the bikes. Now at £23,450, we've got Aprilia's RS-V4 Factory, which is already a beautiful sports bike with one of the best soundtracks on the market. But specifically at this price, you'd be looking at their SE09 SBK edition, which they've just announced to celebrate Max Biaggi's first of many World Superbike wins on the RS-V4 back in 2009. Fundamentally, it's very similar to the regular old RS-V4 Factory, with the 217 horsepower V4, top-notch chassis, and Öhlins Smart EC2 electronic suspension. But for this special edition, you get a dedicated black, red and white livery on top to reference the OG race bike, as well as a carbon front mudguard and air ducts on the brakes, and a limited edition number on the tank. In at number 6 though, we've got something completely different with Triumph's new Rocket 3 Storm that starts at £23,895 if you go for the GT edition. engine. This was already the largest capacity production motorcycle engine at 2.5 litres, and also the most torque produced at 221 Nm peak. But with this new Storm Edition for 2024, they've tweaked the electronics to get another 4 Nm out of it, as well as another 15 horsepower at the top, for a peak now of almost 180 horsepower. Now, admittedly, this is a big old bike with a wet weight figure of 320 kilograms, but it corners surprisingly well and gets top spec brakes from Brembo, so it also hauls up pretty quickly too. But more than anything, it's just an incredible thing to look at, and I think the stealthy finishes that they've chosen for these Storm versions just suit it down to the ground. Recently, Yamaha announced that moving forward, they won't be updating their iconic R1 superbike to meet increasingly stringent European emission standards, which effectively means it'll no longer be on sale in European markets, at least for the road anyway. For me, it's a huge shame, as it's one of the most instantly recognizable and aggressive sounds on the motorcycle market, with a unique engine configuration of a cross-plane inline-4. And it has to be said, it's an awesome looking bike as well, but ultimately, if they don't sell enough and it's expensive to keep updating, then it's a simple business decision in the end. Still, if you really still want one, then you've got pretty much two options. Either move to a country where emissions regs are a little more slack, where presumably they'll keep on selling it, or go for a track-specific variant like this R1 GYTR. The only catch is that it's £26,500, but that's still not even half the price of the top bike on this list. BMW are up next with their Superbike homologation special, the M1000RR, and this one comes in at £30,940. Effectively, what you're getting here is a race bike with lights, with 212 horsepower on tap from its 999cc inline-4, a pit lane limiter, carbon wheels, carbon bodywork, reverse gear shift, adjustable geometry, and a GPS lap timer. Although it may surprise you to learn that not everything is included in that whopping £30,000 price tag. Some of these are in the extra £5,255 M competition package. Now, overall, it's quite a serious thing, both in terms of price and performance. So if you fancy something a little bit more chilled out, but you do like the idea of the famous BMW M badge, then you may also want to consider the M1000R Naked or M1000XR Super Sports crossover tourer thing instead, both of which are closer to £20,000 than 30. At 9, and kicking off a little bit of a run of ridiculously expensive heavyweight touring bikes, we've got the Goldwing Tour DCT from Honda. This bike has the absolute works, so that if you're ticking off the big miles, you'll be doing so in absolute comfort. The 1.8-litre flat-six engine is buttery smooth and delivers huge dollops of torque, and the effectively automatic DCT gearbox is pretty much seamless with its shifts. There's keyless ignition, central locking luggage, CarPlay, an airbag option, an electronic windscreen, electronic suspension, riding modes, cruise control, a radio and sound system, tire pressure monitoring, countless rider aids, and so like I say, it does have pretty much everything. We've been lucky enough to borrow Goldwings on a few occasions now, and I absolutely love riding them. And yes, they are expensive, but they're really like nothing else on the road, and so if you're even half considering one, I'd thoroughly recommend taking one for a demo. I guess the other option though is to go for a tourer with a bit more of that Americana vibe, and the new 2024 Indian Roadmaster Elite does it, I think it's fair to say, pretty well. The dedicated paint job on this bike gives it a bit of a lift and definitely gives it more of a luxurious appearance than the fairly understated Goldwing. And then you've got an absolute throne on the back for your passenger, combined with a seat that's both heated and cooled, so it can pump cold air directly onto your undercarriage, presumably to help maintain your fertility. Again, you've got remote lock-in luggage, this time with speakers inside the lids, their Pathfinder adaptive LED lighting, their Ride Command infotainment system, and all the latest rider aids and gadgets that you should ever need. Now, I'm not going to lie, this is a humongous motorcycle at £909 ready to ride, or just over 412 kilograms. That's pretty much two normal bikes, but fortunately, you've got their super torquey 116 Thunderstroke engine to shove it along, with 126 foot-pounds or 170 Nm made right down at just 2,900 RPM. Now Harley, of course, makes something equally eye-watering in terms of expense, with their CVO badge representing the crème de la crème in their lineup. For 2024, the most costly, at £38,995, is the CVO Road Glide ST. Now I know from the comments on my videos about Harleys that this particular bike, with its big wide headlight and the fairly bulbous frame-mounted fairing, isn't exactly everyone's cup of tea, but personally, I actually think it looks quite cool. The ST edition denotes a bit more performance than the regular CVO Road Glide, and as such you get a massive 121 cubic inch high output engine making 126 horsepower peak. There's carbon bodywork to reduce weight by over 10 kilograms, a high flow Screaming Eagle exhaust system, Showa piggyback shocks, radial Brembo brakes on wavy discs, and more. Close to 40 grand is obviously a mind-blowing amount of money to spend on a motorcycle, but this one, to me, does look pretty special. Up next from KTM, we've got their collaboration with luxury car tuners Brabus in the form of this 1300R Masterpiece Edition. At just shy of £44,000, I think it's worth pointing out that what you're effectively getting underneath is a KTM Super Duke, and that bike costs about a third of that. But it has to be said, they've absolutely gone to town on the styling, and it's paid off massively. There's completely new carbon bodywork, a redesigned round headlight, and dedicated forged wheels finished in gold with polished sections, all of which, in my opinion, combine for a brilliant looking bike that almost looks like a ready-to-ride concept. Sadly, there are two major downsides though. The first is the price, and the second, the fact that they only made 25 of these final Masterpiece editions, so even if you can afford one, they're all sold out. Fortunately, if you're amongst that extremely select group, then have a dig around at the back of the sofa and see if you can find a spare pound coin, and then at least you'll have enough for one of these. It's the MV Agusta Rush 1000, which is indeed £44,000, so a pound more than the Brabus. And it is similar in some ways. It's got that super aggressive naked styling with the performance to back it up, and also the round headlight gives it a bit of a similar front end, but the underpinnings here are that already bonkers Brutale 1000RR Super Naked with an inline 4 that makes well over 200 horsepower. The chassis is super similar to and equally premium, but they've just taken a different direction with the styling here, and it has to be said, this is a bike that definitely stands out from the crowd. That tail unit for me is phenomenal, the paintwork is a bit louder and more graphical, and the disc wheel cover at the rear gives it a bit of a signature feature. In my opinion, this is one of the coolest looking bikes on this list, and I dare say, with the amount of effort that's gone into the styling, like the Harley, it almost looks worth the money. Equally, one could argue that the Kawasaki Ninja H2R is worth the cash, but from a totally different perspective. I wouldn't say it has the looks of an MV, for example, but on performance, it's pretty much unparalleled. You see, the peak power figure of this bike is over 320 horsepower, and so that's about 100 more than any other bike on this list. It makes it by supercharging a 998cc inline 4, and these truly phenomenal figures, I think it's fair to say, are inappropriate for the road. Kawasaki, it seems, would agree with that statement, as this one's track only, although you can get the standard H2, so non-R model, in some markets. Unfortunately, here in the UK and Europe, that's not the case, but there is the H2SX Sports Tourer and the ZH2 Naked, and so you've still got a couple of options if you want to experience the twittering effects of supercharging on the road. In at 15 though, and just missing out on the top spot, we've got Norton with this limited 588 edition of their V4 SV sports bike. This specific finish has been issued to celebrate 125 years of Norton, and it does so by referencing their iconic rotary race bikes of the 80s and 90s. We recently saw this one in the flesh at the London Motorcycle Show, and with the black finish, light blue blocks, mirror polished frame and engine covers, and the gold anodized suspension and OZ racing wheels, it really does make for a bit of a showstopper. But top of the tree though, we've got none other than Ducati with their recent collaboration with Bentley, inspired by their Bator supercar. This one is £58,000 to start, and that's without the matching helmet and leather jacket. And so the question is, could a motorcycle ever be worth that incredible sum of money? Well, in case you were wondering, we've got the full lowdown on this bike right here on the screen now, so you can give it a click and give it a watch and make up your own mind. Do let me know which bike you'd pick from the list down in the comments below, and I think mine would probably be this Diavel, so I could sell it and buy 6 £10,000 bikes. Hit subscribe as well if you want to see more of the latest motorcycle news and reviews right here on YouTube. Many thanks for watching today, and we'll catch you in the next video.